Hello to you, TubeU friends. How you doing? How's it going? Yes, it's me again. Trying to think of a different, you know, watcher, John. How's it going? Watcher John, always like. I know a guy from London, a Cockney fella. Yeah, calls everyone John, including me. Used to work with him. Anyway, here we are again. Here we are once again. Now, week 11 is gone again. It's past. Today is Tuesday the 9th of June. We are 2 days now into week 12 of lockdown. Up here in lovely sunny, not so sunny, bit patchy North Wales. Holiday maker less North Wales, which is a bit odd for June, really. And this week has been another interesting week. I mean, we can't tell you what, we can't claim not to live in interesting times. It's there seems to be one new thing, new topic or big new thing happening each week. Last week it was the protest kicking off in the US, and then started to kick off here about George Floyd's murder. And all of the response to that, of course. Sorry, the week before last. Then over the last week, more protests gathering pace here in the UK, culminating over the weekend with big demos in London and Bristol and other places in Britain. Obviously, the tearing down of the statue of, I forgot his name now, but the slave trader in Bristol, who was obviously gave his money over to building a lot of things in Bristol. He seems to have a lot of things named after him in Bristol, even to this day. And the daubing of Winston Churchill's statue in Westminster, which I've walked past myself. What was it? They wrote on it. Churchill was a racist, I think. Whatever. So that's caused all consternation with the sort of the mainstream media, as you might imagine. In the newspapers and all that sort of stuff. Most of them, anyway. Blah de blah. So now to yesterday, Monday, which was the actual. I'm a day late again. Was the actual anniversary of the end of the 11th week. There was a whole big debate about statues and should we have statues and things to morally questionable, if not, at best, if not, guilty of mass murder, rich people from the past, basically. Well, anyway, my personal take on that is if you're going to take them all down, you're going to have to take down a hell of a lot of statues in Britain. And of course the problem is it's not just statues. You've got, old buildings dedicated, you have to change the name of the buildings. There's, plaques up. If you look, especially if you live in a city, you're going to see a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm here up in North Wales, I'm in Rhyl. A bit further inland we've got a town called Denby, which you may or may not know. In Denby, in front of the library there, every year there's a bit of a celebration from some, and the council I think really back it. I'm not sure if they do how much they do or not, for Mr. Hang on a minute, I can never remember this. The man who found Stanley, was it around in Africa, famously? Oh God. Names. I'm terrible with names. It'll come back to me. Anyway, there's always a big thing about that, and there's always a big counter sort of protest online, and I think actually in recent years in person against holding the celebration, because it came from Denby apparently, and there's apparently lots of questionable episodes in his life and what he was doing in Africa. Mr. Stanley, yeah. Um, but again, that stood. I heard that the people in Bristol had been trying to get um, at least something put up, or that the plaque that was on the statue there changed to sort of put into context what that individual had, what the responsibility was for slavery in the past, and his involvement in the slave trade and profiteering from that. Which I think actually is a good idea. I personally would want to keep. I don't know about you. Please comment below and let me know what you think. I think it'd be sensible, especially for the money and everything, to perhaps keep some of the statues, but have, you know, descriptions for people now looking at them about the context of the history, rather than just sort of whitewashing, pardon the pun, whitewashing what they did. Statues in museums, okay, you know, yeah. But obviously the people on Saturday and the protests in Bristol were trying to make a point. Yes, technically it's criminal damage, so's graffitiing on, no matter what you write on a statue of Winston Churchill. The Winston Churchill is always an odd one for me because, and I don't like to go on about this because I'm personally not a big fan of Winston Churchill, because there are some really, really troubling parts of his history during his lifetime. You know, the famine in Africa, where 3 million people starved because he removed the grain from them, just took the grain from them during the war. Obviously, his comments about people in then British colonies in Africa, again, who were, you know, seen by him as inferior, to put it mildly. So that if you want to go and delve on that sort of stuff, will find quite a bit of stuff, basically. I don't disagree with the sentiment, the statement daubed on his statue that he was a racist. I think personally he was a racist, especially from his comments, if you go and find them, do your history about what we would now call BAME people, but from different parts of the world. Not massively surprising, considering he grew up in a, you know, in the sort of Empire Britain, you know, where we were still sort of in the heyday of our sort of worldwide empire, going around the world, civilizing people, you know, civilizing other countries, which of course he completely believed we were doing. But also he was a you know, Churchill was a how can I put it? What's the term? There's a term for it, isn't there? Really, was sort of a gung ho, wanted to live the sort of you know, your sort of you know, adult the Boy Scout sort of lifestyle over in the Boer War and everything, and all that sort of stuff. It was, you know, it was all a bit, you know. Anyway, I'm not a big fan. I understand his importance during the Second World War with the speeches and, you know, we'll never surrender, all this sort of stuff. Of course, compared to what we have with Mr. Peace in Our Time. Again, I'm usually fine with names. As soon as I'm have to talk about it, it just goes in my head. It'll come back to me. But the previous Prime Minister, anyway. I do actually know it is. I'm not that ignorant of history. So I love history, actually. And it's also difficult because I am in some way related to Winston Churchill and the Churchill family, via my grandmother on my father's side of the family. Story that she never failed to tell me when I was a child and a child, teenage. We used to go and visit them every summer holiday down in Berkshire. That was the story, basically, of how one of our ancestors one of her ancestors and our ancestors ran away with a lote with one of their, you know, immediate family. So anyway, so I won't get into that. So because I'm not a big guy, I don't want to talk about that. But I understand, you know, who Churchill was. I haven't got this sort of rose-tinted view of Churchill. In fact, on that note, it was it a month or maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, George Galloway on his fantastic Sunday evening radio slash slash TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter show, Moats, mother of all talk shows. If you haven't seen it, go and seek it out here on YouTube. There's back issues, as it were, to watch. He has a Hall of Fame and a Hall of Shame each Sunday, and I remember on one of the nights he put in Mr. Churchill in the Hall of Fame because of his, you know, his sort of fighting spirit and his speeches in Britain and the sort of you know, in that sense his work to defeat Nazism and help us bring the UK through all of that. You know, I can't be able to speak today. I'll explain why in a minute. I'm just knackered. And then in his Hall of Shame, which followed, Mr. Churchill was in there for the reasons I've already spoken about. So yeah, obviously it's criminal damage technically. Obviously, those that want to defend Mr. Churchill, that aren't happy about the protests, are going to, you know, focus on that. I'm not condoning criminal damage, but I have to say I didn't completely disagree with or think that what was written was untrue particularly. Obviously you have your own view on that, so please, like I say, please comment down below. I'd like to know what you think. It'd be very interesting. Always up for a bit of a debate. So that's all been interesting. As I said last week, the sort of the spark, which was George Floyd's murder over in the US, has led to something bigger, much bigger, something global, and of course still during what's supposed to be lockdown, even if some restrictions are lifted, but lockdown here and, as I understand it, in the US and other places, doesn't seem to have stopped the protest, the anger, you know, which is about George Floyd's murder, and as I said, also, and isn't, it's also about wider issues. That seems to have been the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people. But yeah, if I'm struggling today for some reason, it's gone 9 now, 9 in the evening. I'm absolutely turning from news items to myself. I'm absolutely shattered, mentally and physically. I'm absolutely knackered because I have to say I am so busy, even though I've now been shielding of myself. I say shielding apparently, but no, I'll use the term. Even though I've been shielding with my family for 12 or 13 weeks now. Yeah, if this is week 11, 12 or 13 weeks. I seem to be as busy as ever, if not busier, but obviously not outside the house. I've been doing so much, you know, via this thing here that I'm filming with now, my little 7-inch Amazon Kindle, has been my sort of connection with the rest of the world, the community here, you guys doing these videos, which not many people watch them, but they're as much for my own sort of mental well-being as anything. I suppose if anyone is interested in watching them for posterity in the future, for these sort of weekly reviews of what's been going on really in a sort of one person's life during all of this. I've just been so busy. It just seems to be every day now. I'm waking up, and I'm immediately having to try and think of the list of things I have to do in case I forget one before the day's finished. I mean, today I was phoned up by someone from one of our local food banks who's an old friend of mine. We both trained at the local Citizens Advice here, good number of years ago now, and he's there now. Been there for a while actually, helping people there with their sort of welfare benefits inquiries. One of my fellow councillors there runs the food bank and cooks, usually in normal times, cooks meals for, I think it's over 50s on certain days of the week. They had a little cafe they got there, but during this they've been cooking food and sending it out, or gathering food and sending it out. So we spoke about this on the phone today, and this is what I want to talk to you mostly today about, because last week, if you watched last week's video, I spent a good deal of time having a little bit of a rant about the UK government, the Conservative government, Boris Johnson, what's his name, Dominic Cummings, Matt Hancock, all of that lot, basically, the UK government, basically, and their complete, just fantasy land response to all of this, eugenics sort of response from Dominic Cummings about just herd immunity, let us all sort of get it, whoever's going to die, let them die, sorry, falling down there, sorry, and what was it? And they keep doing this. Been doing it since all this bizarre thing is when you the odd one or few times rarer occasions now that you actually see Boris Johnson in public. All he seems to go on about is exceeding expectation, how he's proud of his government's record of dealing with coronavirus, when we have the highest recorded death toll from coronavirus in the world, above the US. So their response is just bizarre, and it's not me just saying this. There's so many people in the MSM, the mainstream media, who would never say anything, but it's just so bizarre. It's so unhideable, even for the mainstream media. They've had enough, I think, a lot of them. They're going, I watched Question Time, which I don't usually watch anymore, last week, or caught a bit of it, which is a bit of an odd one, because they were social, all distancing, of course, the panel, and then obviously the audience weren't there, it was just monitors with a select few sort of. But even Fiona Bruce, who's usually, let's put it, she's no sort of socialist or anything like that, if usually fully on the establishment side and the government side, even she was tearing into the government's representative on the show, Mr. Zakari, I think, because of the nonsense. Again, he was doing it, but they can't help but play with these figures in public as if there isn't a sort of 65,000 death toll from this. It's just bizarre. It's like, they're living in some alternate reality in their minds. There's nothing to see here. Anyway, that was last week, so I did that, and they continue to do that. So I promised last week, in the interest of balance and fairness, that this week I would talk about Labour's response to all of this. Now, obviously in the UK government, obviously Labour are in opposition down in Westminster. Here in Wales, so don't forget, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland have devolved to different extents, but devolved governments. So here in Wales we've got a devolved, not completely, but devolved as far as health, education, policing, devolved government here, down in the Senate, down in Cardiff. totally the other end from me in Wales, basically. I'm at the top, there at the bottom. I've never been to Cardiff. I've never made it to Cardiff. Can't afford to get there. From what I've heard, it's a bloody nightmare trying to get there, to be honest, if you don't drive. Even if you do drive, getting from North Wales to South Wales, Cardiff is very difficult on the train. It takes a long time, costs quite a lot. I haven't got that sort of money, or patience, frankly. And I've definitely need to go, you know. So, the Welsh Government has been Labour held from 97, 99? Basically since it was created. And I have to say, during this crisis, you've seen all the stuff about PPE shortages, with the Tories on the news, shortages of tests, getting the sort of whole testing regime together and the debacle over that. Still going on there. Initially, all the letters that were supposed to be sent out to people who were deemed at risk because of pre-existing health conditions. Well, of course, everything that was supposed to be happening in England and Britain, but really effectively in England, same thing was supposed to be happening here in Wales with Welsh Labour, the Welsh Labour government. And it has been an absolute, just as bad, really, in the complete lack of any response whatsoever, and the slowness, the slowness to come close in Wales, as it has with the Tories in England. But for different reasons. The Tories in England, and this was admitted by Tobias Ellwood, actually last week when I was watching Good Morning Britain with Piers Morgan. Tobias Ellwood, who's a Conservative MP, admitted that Dominic Cummings is in charge of the government's response to COVID. Has been, and this is what I said. If you watch possibly, this is what I've understood anyway, which is why they're so desperate to hold on to him after Cummingsgate and everything. It was clear because he went to the Cobra meetings, the 5 Cobra meetings, I believe, that Johnson missed, because he's effectively the decision maker the policy maker in the government. Johnson's just the shop window buffoon, basically. He's out there to stick his face in the camera and sort of blah blah blah, bumble, waffle, waffle, bumble, absolute nonsense at you, which I think more people are starting to realise now. So obviously in England, the lack of response and what they've not done, and the sort of lying or trying to cover up what's not happening, what's not been happening, is sort of by design by Dominic Cummings. This was always the plan for him, really, was to, when they first abandoned the official herd immunity policy, it's still been the policy, but just on the quiet, So some of it is incompetence, but a lot of it isn't, I think, down in England. I think a lot of it's actually by design, but they're not going to tell you that, they're not going to say that, because obviously thousands of people have died, tens of thousands. In Wales, I get the sense it's a different thing. I think with the Welsh government, the Labour government here, it's just pure and utter incompetence. They're completely out of their depth, totally out of their depths, particularly the Welsh Government Health Minister, Vaughan Gething. Vaughan Gething has been absolutely absent in his job, absent in his role, useless. Totally, for anyone that's bothered to try and observe at all about the sort of health in North, especially up here in North Wales, where I am. Betsy Cadwell at a health board and our local hospital, but he's a disastrous health minister, absolutely, through incompetence, frankly. He's just not up to it. Again, another, I think, solicitor before he went into politics, a sort of a Blairite figure, A lot of them are still here. He should have. The man should have been removed from his job, because of his complete lack of being able to do the job properly for years ago. And I've been saying this for at least 2 years within Welsh Labour when I was a Welsh Labour councillor. One of the big reasons for me leaving Welsh Labour was Vaughan Gething particularly, and his utter incompetence. And the fact that for some reason the leader of Welsh Labour, Mark Drakeford, who's supposed to be of the Labour left, hasn't moved him on, hasn't just removed him from the role after. And this is before COVID happened. I mean, in Wales for more than the first month, you couldn't get a test anywhere up here. There was only one or two places in the whole of Cardiff where one of them was a car park where you could theoretically get a test if you were a frontline worker. Then at that same time, when everyone was scrabbling around for PPE, apparently the Welsh Government here, who apparently thought they had a contract with, I think, Europe's biggest manufacturer of PPE, or one of the world's biggest manufacturers, as soon as they contacted them for some PPE, they basically said, no, you haven't got a contract with us. I mean, this is basic stuff. Why? They'll have a department for procurement, sorry. The whole job is contracts and procurement. As health is one of the devolved matters. Apparently, we didn't have a contract or a cast iron contract we should have had with this manufacturer. So we didn't get the stuff. This wrangled on for weeks and weeks, basically. So that was a complete disaster, utter disaster. But you didn't. The thing is, in Wales, you don't really hear about it. Even in Wales, you don't hear about it because the spreading of actual what's going on doesn't really happen. You don't really get it on the news here and things. It's very hard to get the news here, to be honest with you. So that all happened, and then I still don't know if we've got the PPE here or not. Basically, what's actually happened with that? Because again, unless I really dig, I'm not going to find it. Go out my way to try and find it. I'm not going to find the information because it just doesn't come up. And then the testing thing reached a head because it was just not happening anywhere. Again, this is entirely down to Mr. Gething. This is his remit, his job. Who sort of stayed silent and then wriggled like a bleeding worm, trying to wriggle his way out of it the whole time. Pretending nothing's happening, nothing's wrong, nothing to see here. It then turned out that they couldn't administer this testing themselves. Apparently, it's beyond them to do. So, just as with the Tories, who they criticise for doing this sort of stuff, they then farmed out the testing, booking, and the software that was needed for it and all this sort of stuff to Amazon and Google, I believe. But primarily Amazon. And you had to go to Amazon to book it. So what that means is, of course, is they've paid. Amazon don't do things for free. They've paid Amazon, one of the biggest tax avoiding multinational giant corporations owned by the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos. They've paid public money, our money, to do the job they should have been able to do. They should have been doing to manage, book manage, and I think they paid a resourcing company, something like Capita or whatever, to administer it, the tests. So, in my opinion, complete abrogation of duty to the people of Wales, the people that elected them, or live in Wales who didn't. I mean, that particularly from a Labour-controlled government, who criticise, of course, the Conservatives for doing that, as the UK government the past 10 years. And the fact they've had to resort to that, but then they're spinning it as if it's some sort of triumph that they've finally got it done. It's bizarre, absolutely bizarre. So yes, the problems in Wales are just down to complete and utter incompetence, and again, head burying in the sand, just as with the UK government. So heads need to roll politically in both, and the sooner the better. Because all of this stuff about, you've had it, you hear it from Hancock, Matt Hancock, the health minister, and the Tories and Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer, for Christ's sake, that's supposedly the leader of Labour, constantly throughout this is, oh, now is not the time to do this. Now is not the time to discuss nurses increasing nurses' pay. Now is not the time to discuss the blame for 65, the worst death toll from COVID in the world, according to the Financial Times and many others. Now is not the time to do anything, apparently. But apparently now is the time. In fact, right at the beginning of this, you might not know about this. This has been the time, during all of this, for MPs to get another pay increase, which happened right at the beginning of this. Now is the time for Keir Starmer to become leader of Labour and do and say absolutely nothing of any significance in criticism of the response or lack of response from government, which has directly led to the needless deaths of tens of thousands of Britons. But now's not the time for him to do or say anything about that. Being mauled by Keir Starmer at Prime Minister's questions from the people that admire him seems to me to be akin to sort of having your big toe nibbled by an angry snail or something. It's pointless. The man is pointless. Absolutely pointless. At least Johnson sort of fulfills his function as a sort of a hand-waving, pretend befuddled, clown really, to be honest, to try and distract people from the horrible, horrible policies and things he and his government actually do and want to do, and their utter, complete lack of again competence in all of this. Again, the same thing can be said for Labour. Look, I'm not. I'm an independent. I'm not. I'm not here to bang the drum for either of them. They've both been absolutely bloody pathetic. Absolutely bloody pathetic, and people have died. Up here in Wales, it's not so much the COVID deaths. Actually, it's from what I understand, it's the deaths of people. People dying in the communities. I've had people here die in the community because what do they call it? COVID-related deaths. Where people with heart problems or cancer or stuff they'd usually be in hospital for, at their doctors for, regularly, getting checked up, going to the hospital for their checkups and treatments and stuff. Well, of course, that stopped, doesn't it? So they're dying at home. I mean, here, our doctors where I am, has been shut for most of this, completely closed down. If I need to see my doctor, forget it. One of my family members was ill over the last couple of days, and I was sitting there for the day they were really ill, thinking, what the hell do I do if this doesn't go off? There's no doctor to call or go to. Obviously, don't particularly want to go to A&E in the hospital for obvious reasons. They wouldn't, also because they've been shielding for 12 weeks along with me, so that would sort of defeat the entire point, wouldn't it really? There's nothing. There's NHS Wales you can phone. That's about it, to be honest with you. I'm supposed to have. I was phoned up because I'm supposed to have a blood test apparently, which I didn't know about. Again, I was supposed to be notified from the hospital. Never was. After I had my heart reset in December, apparently I was supposed to have a blood test and a check-up in April. I never received a letter. Got a phone call last week telling me that apparently this is what's supposed to have happened. They assumed I'd had the letter. No. And then said, you need to come and see us. And I said, well, how? I thought the surgery here was closed. No, you have to come and see us in Prestatyn, which is the next town along the coast, going towards England. how am I supposed to get to Prestatyn? I'm shielding. Even if I wasn't shielding, the only way I can get there was on a bus or a train. You know, which I can't afford to do and wouldn't do anyway in the minute with all this going on. So now I was told, oh, we'll send someone out, we'll try and send someone out to you. Again, sort of defeating the point of shielding, to take blood off you. I don't know, I haven't heard anything since, I don't know what's going on then, you know. So yeah, that's what's been going on. I'm busy. I'm a bit tired. I've been up in to try and get my health back on track again after a year of being housebound last year because of my heart. I've been doing all I can indoors to sort of get fitter, and it's working. You know, I'm doing these aerobic steps basically, doing 200 3 times a week basically, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, which isn't actually. I have to go very slowly and I have to stop a lot because pain in my hips and legs and things, which is age and weight basically. But I'm trying everything I can do. Eating differently as well, eating less, eating good stuff. You know, stuff's good for you. Trying to cook for myself, which isn't happening again for various reasons. To get better quality food really. And it's slowly working, but again, it's not the same as being out and about and trying to walk around in the sunshine. The sunshine's sort of not happened here for the last week or two. I don't know where you are, but hopefully it's a bit warmer today, so hopefully it'll be a bit sunnier. I can get out in the garden again. Just got this thing yesterday. You can see that it's a trumpet basically. So I'm going to start teaching myself how to play that, along with me other instruments I've collected over the years. Very, very cheap. That was very cheap. eBay. The rest have been eBay over the years. I mean, you know, if it's a Christmas time and it's eBay and I've got sort of 30 quid in my pocket, which isn't always, but now and again at Christmas time, and if I'm lucky, I go on eBay and I get like the cheapest, cheapest violin, cheapest flute, now cheapest trumpet. I've got the guitars behind, you see behind me, that one there is one I built from bits that I sort of got off the internet. It was completely unusable when I got it off eBay, totally unusable, cheap, like sort of 30 quid or something, 30, 40 quid. I've had to sort of use my skills, because I am actually a qualified joiner, believe it or not, from many years ago, yes, thanks to the old New Deal. I've had to use my skills to try and sort of put it back together and playable. That one, again, cheap as chips, 30, 40 quid years ago. That's virtually unplayable because the frets are so small and they're sort of like that. They're sort of concave that way? The wrong way anyway. It should be a bit flat with a little bit of an upward curve. Actually, it's because of the fingerboard. I don't know what wood the fingerboard's made out of, but it's so dry and sort of horrible. It's sort of sucking the frets down in the middle, so you can't really sort of fret cleanly anyway. But this is what I do to keep myself occupied if I'm not working on my PhD and trying to get fitter. This is my hobby really, and I've got some music. I'm teaching myself to read things. I can read music and everything, which I've taught myself. And I've got a digital piano there, which I bought 13 years ago when my last set of grandparents died. I've got a little bit of inheritance then, but that's I'll say 13 years old that. So, but you know, when I get time to, which seems to be increasing less, I try and carry on to teach myself how to, which is fun. You know, I'm not massively proficient on everything, but it's a fun thing. It's a hobby. You know, you need a hobby, I think, in life. If you haven't got one, try and get one. I mean, my family's quite good with that. You know, with me, it's music and musical instruments and things. With one of my family members, it's painting and sort of vision, you know, that sort of stuff. Painting, putting things together, like what they call scrapbooking and things, and photographs, photography, and all that. And then with another one, it's actually making Very talented. We seem to be a very artistic family, making sort of just things, doll's house sort of clothes and things, and miniature things basically with a hand. Just amazing. I couldn't do it. It's amazing. And it's really top quality stuff. So he seems to be very good at that, really. So yeah, initially when I first was about to leave school, when I was still in Birmingham, in my penultimate year at high school, we had a very good art department there, and there was Birmingham Art School, which we used to go to in my penultimate year for our sort of double art lessons and things, which was great taking the bus into the city centre. And yeah, I did want to be and expected to try and become some sort of artist, some sort of commercial artist or something like that. And then we moved here, and that sort of stopped immediately because it just wasn't that sort of thing stuff up here really. And it was the dole or the army really for me. And then I ended up on the old YTS, doing unspeakable things that don't like to think back on. I wouldn't be doing now. I was a trainee butcher, and then when I said, "Can I do something else, please?" I was suddenly found myself in the local slaughterhouse being a trainee slaughterman. So anyway, I won't go into that again. So yeah, you need a hobby. You need to enjoy yourself and do what you can, especially with times like this now, to sort of stay okay up here and in body as well, body, soul, and mind. So yeah, if you've got any hobbies or anything you love doing, yeah, let me know below, and let me know what you do to try and take your mind away from things and de-stress and not think about what's going on. But there we are, we've hit the 40-minute mark. It's over 40 minutes again. I keep trying to do these for 20 minutes, I can't do it. I enjoy it so much, rambling about myself and all sorts of stuff. But anyway, you stay safe. I will see you this time next week, if not before. Might do a different video with something else. I'm not sure if I can think about something different to do. But if not, I'll see you then in a week's time, and you take care, and ciao for now.